So it's time for another gardening week video, and it's extremely windy today on Monday, and I noticed that the courgettes that had been in the polytunnel, which are very long stemmed now because we've been harvesting them for ages, are getting really blown around by the winds. That's partly because they've got huge old dead leaves on them that are really not much use to them. So anyway, I cut all these old leaves off, and those leaves were of course supporting the plant on the pots. So then I had to tie the plants into stakes to support them, but they seem to be okay now, and they're looking so much better now that I've got all the old dead leaves off. The reason for all those dead leaves was that I put them outside without hardening them off, and of course then we had the summer storms and that just bashed up those old leaves. So yeah, by contrast, the ones that have always grown outside, of course, are much healthier than the ones that started in the polytunnel. It's still worth starting in the polytunnel for the early harvest, but I do need to take a little bit more care next time, I think, in the way that I harden them off before I put them outside. So I've also been doing something slightly new, which is interplanting into every little gap that I've got in the pepper beds. I've never tried that before, but I'm actually quite pleased with the results so far. And yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. I'll report back in future videos. I have planted up my purple sprouting broccoli on my plot. We've got one more bed to do on Debbie's plot. We've got 3 varieties: Admiral, Redfire and Claret, and they give a nice staggered harvest in theory, all the way through from winter all the way through until late spring. I'm sure there'll be plenty of gaps in between. Knowing purple sprouting broccoli, it tends to come in very short flushes of harvest, but anyway, it's really nice to have at that time of year when flowering brassicas are in short supply. Finished off planting the beetroot in the main beetroot bed for storage beetroot on the allotment, and we're busy planting storage beetroot at home this week as well, so you'll see that in a few days' time. And again, because it's just so windy at the moment, it has been for most of summer, to be honest, I have tied in my climbing squashes, and they're growing up my new squash frame, and they're looking okay at the moment. They're not powering up the squash frame, but they are growing steadily, about 6 inches every couple of days. So hopefully they'll soon have climbed to the top, and we'll have loads and loads of summer squash. Maybe not. So while I've been harvesting, I've noticed a little bit of golden purslane has got black fly on the underside of the leaves, and I've been wondering, where's this black fly coming from? Because I've never had black fly on purslane before, and actually the purslane is under a kind of a mesh. It's not a really fine mesh, but it is under a mesh, and I was thinking, this is a bit strange. I think I've got it under control now, but then when I was just looking at the courgettes, and I realised that the male courgette flowers are absolutely covered with black fly. So I'm guessing, I don't know what the causality is there, whether it's come from the courgettes, so the purslane or vice versa. But anyway, I've taken all those male flowers off, and it doesn't look so bad now. It's Tuesday, and I'm down on the plot again, which is unusual for me because I don't normally do 2 days in a row like a rest day. But I've got a lot to do because I'm away for 4 days over the next 2 weeks. So went all the way through the allotment looking for issues, and noticed that my courgettes in the main courgette bed were looking really sorry for themselves. Lots of dead and dying leaves at the bottom and all that. So took the nets off, had a finger around trying to find out what was wrong. Noticed really that the ones at the ends of the Brussels sprout beds were doing great. They were literally twice the size of the ones in the courgette bed, and the ones in the Brussels sprout bed have got a thick layer, sort of 1.5 to 2 inches of strulch over them. That's like a mineralised chopped straw, and underneath there the ground was really moist. Now I've watered them the same, both beds of courgettes. But the one that was suffering didn't have that layer of strulch, same amount of water, but was really dry. And so given it a good tidy up, taken off all those damaged water stressed leaves, given it a really good water, and I'm buying some strulch, so I'll be applying some strulch to that bed as well. So yeah, I also, since I had loads and loads of brassica leaves, because I tidied up all my brassica beds today, decided to make another big compost bin. I really like to make my compost bins as quickly as possible, so all in a day is ideal, so that they heat up to the maximum temperature, because at this time of year, horse stable bedding, which is what I'm using, so horse manure mixed with wood shavings, it's full of weed seeds. You know, the horses are out eating the grass in the meadows, and of course it's not really grass, it's clovers and all sorts of other stuff. Loads and loads of weed seeds in there. And yeah, so you compost bins that need to get really hot really quickly, and you need to turn them a few times and keep on adding additional greens to keep them hot, to make sure that you kill all those weed seeds. So it happens every year. My okra plants start to look a bit worse for wear, so I earth them up. Take half of this bucket homemade compost per pot, just kind of pour it on the top. Looks a bit drastic, and it's kind of hard to get it all the way down, but sort of shake the plants a little bit, kind of rub it in a little bit like that, and then just water it in, and the water will carry the compost down to the base of the plant and hopefully rejuvenate them a little bit. There's just not quite enough compost in the pots as it shrinks down to support the growth rate, I think. So our rainy period is finally over, so it's worth spraying with BT for me, because all of my brassicas, or nearly all of them, are uncovered now because they've outgrown their nets. Now, BT is not licensed for use by amateurs in the UK, and that's not because it's unsafe or anything like that. It's because of the regulators' concerns that the caterpillars will become resistant to it over time if it's not used properly. So, as far, I'm not an expert in the use of it, but I think home gardeners are probably as safe as anybody for using it, provided they use it properly. And by properly, I mean that you never let caterpillars that are resistant to it grow to maturity, because if they do, then obviously their offspring will be more resistant to it, and gradually we'll get a resistant population developing. So if you kind of spray indiscriminately over all sorts of different things and then just leave them to it, then some caterpillars will survive. You don't want that to happen. Now, I think that's much more likely to happen in a farmer's field than it is in a home garden. But in a home garden, the key thing is to keep an eye on your plants. Don't let any caterpillars grow to maturity and then turn into butterflies, basically. So I think, as I say, as home gardeners, that is much less likely to happen. I like to walk around, give my plants a good look over at least once every 2 or 3 days, and if I see any caterpillars, then I'll be squashing those and making sure that none survive, that have survived the BT in the first place. I generally don't find it's an issue. I find here in my environment that so long as I'm squashing the eggs when I see them and spraying with BT every 2 weeks, nothing pretty much ever gets through those 2 checkpoints to survive. So anyway, that's just a quick pointer there. What you don't want to be doing is just kind of spraying and then leaving them to it, and letting 10% of them or 5% of them survive and just not worrying about those. Make sure that if there are any surviving, they're getting killed as well. Anyway, the result of that regulator decision means that you can't easily buy BT in the UK. I always get mine from eBay. I did have a quick look on eBay, I couldn't find any, so you just have to hunt around and see if you can source it. If you do manage to get it, I always buy the big container and then I share it with all my allotment neighbours, because it lasts for ages, it lasts for a couple of years, and there's way more in a sort of commercial grade container than I can ever use. So that's the way I do it. And when you're spraying, I always make, ideally what you would do is spray the tops of the leaves, the bottoms of the leaves, but if you don't have enough, or you don't have enough time, it's the heart of the plant, where it's throwing up new leaves, the growth point. That is the kind of top priority. Plants will generally outgrow a mild attack from caterpillars, provided the growth point isn't decimated. So I always just spray in that growth point, make sure that that gets a good dose of ET, and then if any of the outer leaves or whatever get attacked, then just take those off, throw them in the compost bin or whatever. So it's Thursday, and today I've been concentrating on the back garden and a little bit in the front garden, mostly planting beetroot and interplanting onions. I've now finished all of my storage beetroot crop. It's all planted now, a little bit behind last year, noticeably behind actually. I would say maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks behind last year, which is, I don't know whether that's a concern, it's just a fact, and it probably sort itself out as the weather warms up a little bit now. And yeah, I think that's me done for gardening this week. I'm off for a couple of days down in Didcot with my eldest daughter, and so you'll just see some nice pictures now, I think probably of some rolling fields. Lovely area down there, and loads of footpaths that take it all over the place in the local area. My daughter's house is basically right on the edge of the farmland, so you basically just fall out the door into farmers' fields. It's really lovely to explore around, and then we'll just get on with the harvest. So we're not harvesting for many people this week, so this is one of the smallest harvests of the year. I'll just take you through it. Debbie's started preserving now, and there's a lovely selection of preserves, and pretty much this is the end of the preserves for us this year, I think, because there's plenty there. There's marmalades and jams, and there's a few herbs and some pickled beetroot, boiled beetroot, and just a handful of shelling peas. That's the last of the shelling peas for us. Salad onions, just a sample of the garlic, courgettes, calabrese side shoots, new potatoes, gorgeous carrots, new season onions, and the only brassica leaves I picked this year were the Brussels, because they're just absolutely beautiful. These slightly blown Brussels and sprout tops, gorgeous. Baking potatoes, just a few sweet peppers, some chili peppers over there, sample of the fruits that we're picking fresh every day, green garlic, sugar snap peas, smoothie mixes, golden beetroot and red beetroot, the tomatoes, salad onion tops, golden purslane, French beans, a ridiculous quantity of cucumbers. We've given loads of cucumbers away and they still can't get through them all, and the salad bases. So I just got to make up those salads now, and then I'll be done. So I hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.